Before we begin, thank you very much to Bring Back Toys Simber, you coward, for joining the Patreon campaign. Okay, look, when you're working a day job and doing a daily schedule, and then you can, and all the other side things you've got going on the back burner, then you can tell me that, it's a easy thing to do 31 reviews on top of that. I'd love to bring back Toy Simber. I really would. I don't have the time to do it. So I do apologize if you're missing out on it, but it ain't happening because I would rather enjoy this and not kill myself to get the content out for the month. Nevertheless, do appreciate the contribution. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Okay, so I'm going to get right into it today because this one is... This one's a little bit of a hot button recently, but it's one of those topics that comes up every now and then. And it's a valid topic, but I also think it's a topic that gets a little blown out of proportion, which is somewhat ironic considering the overall subject matter. So, these listings for Transformers Reactivate came up, and honestly, I'm kind of ashamed of myself that in the video going over the Hasbro stream recently, I didn't catch this myself, and I really should have. So I pointed it out on Twitter with a really nice little diagram, not a diagram, but I showed what I meant. So in this stock photo that's currently on all the retailers, Bumblebee's size is misrepresented. Bumblebee is actually closer to a deluxe size. Starscream is a Voyager class. It's kind of an important thing when you're asking the price that you are asking. But it does feel like it's most likely an accident, but it does feel like they are misrepresenting what you are getting out of the package when we saw them in box together. You can very easily tell Bumblebee is quite a bit smaller. And the same is true of the Soundwave that comes packed with Optimus Prime. That's why the stock photos of it made it look all Slenderman. This is unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. But it almost feels like it could have been intentional to make you feel like you're getting something a little bit better than you were for the price. Because at $63, it is a little bit marked up. If you are used to paying $25 for a deluxe, $35 for a Voyager, there's an extra $3 in there. And it doesn't, okay, fine. It doesn't seem like much, $3 more, really? You're going to complain about $3? Well, kind of, yeah. Because Transformer prices keep creeping upwards, so it's scary to see them creeping up again, even if it's just for a special occasion like this. Yeah, I would expect, if it's a deluxe and a Voyager, $59.99, right? I would expect that. When that's not what I get, then we raise an alarm. Then we raise some concern. Because it's already getting very difficult to justify this hobby sometimes. I will admit myself, I am being much more careful about what I buy. There's a lot of new figures that I've completely skipped because I know ultimately I'm not going to hold interest in them. I've skipped a lot of repaints that normally I would have grabbed just because they look neat. I've been trying to watch what I spend, which is not how I used to do things, but it's how I have to now. Also, I'll wait for sales a lot more than I used to. A lot more than I used to. We do what we must. However, it does raise the question again about what we are paying for the size that we are getting. And that is a valid criticism. So let's go back. So the size debate for Transformer toys goes all the way back into the Beast Wars era when Hasbro started standardizing the size classes. This is the size that we're going for. And there's a whole range in this size. There's a whole range in this size. Previous to this, there were arrangements and there were sizes, but it was more like a wave-to-wave, set-to-set case, rather than there's always going to be a wave that is this size. There's the whole series is going to have a wave this size. And we're not going to branch out from that except for some special packs or something. So this got the debate started. This kind of set it in stone, how we view the prices for Transformers. If it's this size, I expect to pay this much. Back then, we learned from Hasbro, actually it's kind of more into the 2000s when Hasbro started getting more vocal, but I think back then we learned that Transformers at the time were priced based on the weight, not necessarily the overall height or mass, but the actual weight of the material that went into the toy, which you would think would be pretty easy and pretty standard, right? And being able to play with that is how we got things like Metroplex, who is as tall as Cybertron Primus, but obviously not nearly as bulky. So it could be sold at a $40 price point and feel like something of a special purchase. You know, you felt like you were getting a gigantic toy for your money because at the time you were. The more recent, well, I say more recent. That's a silly question for something that came out in the late 2000s. But no, like my favorite example of this is Lockdown. I've said it on the channel before, and I'll say it again. When this toy was first revealed, a friend of mine swore it was a Voyager because it was so freaking tall. You know, right here, he's taller than Voyager Starscream. The secret to the toy is that he is a lanky boy. There's not nearly as much bulk to this toy. So it was priced based on the weight of the overall figure, not the overall height of the robot mode. Thus, it's a deluxe price point, and there was much rejoicing. Hey, again, fun figure for its price class because you felt like you were getting so much more from it. That's kind of shifted these days. We have figures like Cliffjumper and Bumblebee who came out who were considerably smaller than anything else in their size class. And that started raising a few hairs. Now, core class is way too small for the mini-bots, so without adding a new price point in there, you really can't give them a justified area to exist in on the Transformer shelves. And there's a higher reason for that too, but we can kind of save that toward the end. For now, let's focus on, there's Transformers coming out that just feel small for the price point they are being asked. Now, the easy answer here is they're just being made the size that they need to be made for the character. And that's kind of the crux of this whole thing about sizes now. We stopped paying for the weight of the toy a long time ago. We don't even really know where that started. If we're being completely honest, it's hard to pinpoint a spot where the transition happened. But overall, we are now paying for the character rather than paying for the size or the weight of the toy. Now, in the case of Bumblebee, he is the size that he needs to be. You know, because he is supposed to be much smaller than Optimus Prime. He's even smaller than the other mini-bots. So if they're going to try to create some semblance of scale, and I would appreciate them creating a semblance of scale, he's got to be a small deluxe. Also, could I have picked a better image to demonstrate their actual sizes compared to each other? Yes. Could I have picked a funnier one? No. I could have gone in the same episode and come up with one that was highly inaccurate, so I think in that regard, I was trying to be nice. But the point being, that's basically how Transformers work these days. You know, other mini-bots still come up a head shorter than actual deluxe car Transformers. So it kind of balances out. It's kind of just, it's what size the character needs to be. And there is precedent for that. It does end us up with some weird situations. The Ironhide situation, for instance. So there's also a matter here that we don't really discuss, which is the complexity of the design, engineering, part count. All of that increases the price of producing the toy. And it comes down to just what makes toys more expensive in general than they used to. Materials more expensive, shipping's more expensive. But the production, the actual people putting these toys together in the factory, that is also getting more expensive. So when you have something like Ironhide that takes a lot more parts to produce than the previous deluxe that's right beside him, that gets pricier. So we kind of have to foot the bill at the store. I do think that ultimately pays off. I mean, if I had the two side by side, ultimately I think I prefer the Studio Series Ironhide. And overall, yes, it's kind of the size he needs to be. He's a little bit larger than the normal Autobot cars, so it's weird. So this, like I said, This is not uncommon. Across Hasbro brands, this is not uncommon, but it took a while for it to reach Transformers. It's been in the other brands for a hot minute, and it's only gotten more and more apparent. Here's a recent Black Series wave where Omega and Wicket, you know, the Ewok, are going to be sold at the same price as Chewbacca, who is a larger scale figure. You're paying for the character. And to be truthful with you, like, they could make the mini-bots bigger, but then they look weird next to Prowl and Sunstreaker and all of them. They could make Bumblebee bigger, then he'd look extremely weird against all of them. You know, if you're going to keep the price points where they are, if you're not going to introduce a brand new price point just to put those mini-bots in, then that's what you gotta do. And they do try to make up for it, but, you know, it still comes out weird sometimes. But point being, this is not exclusive to Transformers. Marvel, you know, Star Wars, they've been doing it for a while. And it'll give me a hot minute and I'll show you what I meant by a while. Let's look into some of the other lines. Marvel Legends does it too. Marvel Legends absolutely does it too. When you think a character like as bulky as Drax costs the same amount as a character like Mantis, and then you realize Rocket is in this wave and being charged the same price, I don't care how big his gun is. That action figure is the complicated part. That's the part that's expensive in that whole set. The gun is just a painted single, maybe two pieces of plastic. That's not hard to produce. That's not hard to create. So the price needs to be in that raccoon. And yeah, sometimes it ain't. Sometimes it ain't. The beauty of Marvel Legends is that it commands the toy aisles so well that every now and then they can get away with something that Transformers can't, which is just randomly throwing out a figure at a completely different size, you know, that just has, you know, just so because it has to. You know, the recent Across the Spider-Verse had that with the Cyborg Spider-Woman. You know, it had to be that big. Now, they used to do it as Build-A-Figure. I guess they kind of figure out now they can just charge $60 and sell it on its own. Sometimes that's the case. But it's still, that's because Marvel has a much higher command at the stores than Transformers do. It has a wider reach. It's a more popular franchise. So they can get away with that. Transformers can't. Transformers cannot get away with tricks like that. So we're kind of stuck in the format that we have right now. Again, Marvel Legends will just keep doing this if you keep looking. You tell me that the Invisible Woman and Thing both cost $25? Really? We're going to talk that? But the truth to it is, this has been going on for a while. It's been going on for a long while. You have to be out of sight of Transformers to notice it, though. Do we want to talk about the old Phantom Menace toys? Because that Anakin Skywalker costs you the same thing as a Chewbacca at the same size scale. Same exact size scale, but you have to pay the price. You have to pay it. You know, you pay for the character. Point, you know, simple as that. You know, you pay for what it costs to get that character and get the character the way they're supposed to be portrayed. Yeah, Anakin could be bigger. The freakishly out of proportion. Yeah, you could probably throw more accessories in to try to bulk it out. Anakin didn't have that many accessories, you know? You know, he's got like a little repair tool and a helmet. That's about all he ever held in the movie. So what are you going to do? You're going to make a tiny action figure and you're going to charge the exact same price you would as you would the Han Solo figure. You have to do it. You don't have an option in that matter. Oh, and just so we're clear here, it's not just Hasbro that does this. No. Every toy line does this at some point. Let's take a look at the 2012 Ninja Turtles line. Yeah, Big Boy Baxter here costs the same amount as that scrawny little April O'Neil. And that's not even the worst example. Figures like Dog Pound are even bigger than Baxter Stockman there. And they were the exact same, I believe, when they came out, $777. I remember specifically seeing at Walmart that it was a $3.7 price point. Because I thought that was funny. And I think they upped it to like $8 at some point. They ruined the joke. Point being, common practice across toys. That's just the fact that it's only been since probably Siege that Transformers has really adopted the exact same sales strategy. And of course, we don't like when they do things differently. We don't like when we're being charged for something smaller than everything else at the same price at retail. You weren't here 20 years ago, were you? You weren't here 20 years ago, 22 years ago to be precise. Were you there when Wedge was around? And if you Bayverse fans, I'd probably bet no. So back in 2001, this one caused a stir. Look how tiny he is. Look how tiny he is in that big blister package. So they didn't have a choice here. Wedge was the central component to a set of combining construction vehicles. And all of those were like proper deluxe size. Wedge was the odd bot out. In Japan, that was no problem. They were sold as a gift set. You know, you just pay one price, you're done. The individual ones were priced differently, so you could actually cooperate. You know, so it was easier to justify. They didn't get to do that in America. They had a $4.99 price point that he was way too big for, and they had a $9.99 price point, and that's where he got stuffed. And back then, there was an outrage, just like there is today. Nothing is new anymore. We Transformer fans will complain about the same things ad nauseum instead of just getting used to it and going, hey, that is how it is. No, we had this problem back in 2001. We all got over it. I don't think anyone gives Wedge a hard time anymore. But ask yourself, well, why not just make him? Why not? Why not make a mini-bot class that's, like $19.99 so they can be smaller and still feel worth it? Why not back then do a $7.99 figure and just put Wedge in there? Well, number one, because you only have so many toys to fill out that size class. Look at how much trouble they have filling out core. They run out of characters to do in core class. It feels like all the time. So we just randomly stick in, I don't know, Energon Megatron, just to make him a core class. Why not? Feels a little bit random. But here's the thing. A lot of it comes down to the retailers. Just not really wanting to change the sizes. They not wanting Hasbro to include yet another size class to an already full shelf. They like things staying the same. They like the organization to it. They don't want to have to keep this. They really don't want is to do the work to keep the sections organized and keep all the individual SKUs in check. What they want is for Hasbro to stick to their guns, keep it consistent, and just keep releasing these the way that they are now. So a lot of times it's just down to retailers will whine if they come up with anything that fits a certain size that doesn't exist right now. And that's kind of where they get stuck sometimes. And so it's not all Hasbro. Just to cut off that argument, it's not all Hasbro responsible for this. It's a mix of a million things. So again, yeah, be angry at Hasbro, but also be angry at the factories that are producing the toy. Be angry at the retailers who won't let them get away with different pricing schemes. Blame the shipping company for overcharging for their service. Blame it all, because every bit of it shares a bit of blame. The point of the video is basically, we're stuck with this kind of stuff. Just get over it already. It's been years. If it isn't worth it to you, if you look at this and go, that's not worth the price, that's perfectly fine. But grandstanding about it is not going to help. If you don't like it, vote with your wallet and don't buy it. Simple as that. And for the people who are fine with the prices, for people who can justify this and are looking forward to it, don't ruin their good time. Don't ruin their good time whining. It just distracts from what enjoyment that they're getting out of this. It's fine if you don't enjoy it, but just don't ruin it for everyone else because you want to complain about a certain aspect of it. This is coming from the guy who complained that they misrepresented Bumblebee's size, but I think that's fair. I think that's a fair call out. So yeah, that's how Transformers are these days. We're paying for the character, and we need to get used to that and stop arguing it. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. Don't buy it. It just seems to be as simple as that. Doesn't need to be a big shouting match. Doesn't need to raise anyone's anger. Just let it go. And that's what we're doing for today's video. I'm letting this thing go. So, thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.
We parlay with the captain.
You think a werecroc is going to listen to elvish rules of piracy?
Of course it would be the
Got it.
freaking elves
Cool.
that invented parlay.
I had to think of a quick replacement for the French.
Oh.